I know a guy who can explain compound interest better than I can. He knows what an expense ratio is. He's read the books. He could sit down right now and walk you through exactly why a Roth IRA beats a regular savings account, sentence by sentence, no notes. He's also $34,000 in credit card debt. Not because he doesn't understand money, because understanding it and actually doing something different with it turned out to be two completely separate skills. And nobody tells you that until you've already spent years assuming they were the same thing. I used to think being smart with money was the whole game. Learn the rules, apply the rules, win. Then I watched someone who knew every rule lose anyway. And it made me look a lot harder at something I'd been doing myself without noticing. If you're into the psychology behind money, wealth, and the financial decisions that shape our lives, consider subscribing. I'm Jake, and I've spent way too much time making money mistakes, so you don't have to. So if knowledge isn't the thing that's missing, what actually is? Let's get into it. Here's what took me embarrassingly long to figure out. Knowing what to do with money is a logic problem. Doing it is an emotional one, and your brain does not solve those in the same room. I can tell you right now without thinking twice that I should have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved before I take any real financial risks. I've known that for years. I could recite it in my sleep. For most of my 20s, I didn't have it. Not because I didn't know the rule, because knowing the rule and feeling calm enough to actually follow it under pressure are two different muscles, and I'd only ever trained one of them. The guy with the credit card debt isn't an idiot. He's someone who learned the map perfectly and still can't find his way out of the room he's standing in, because the map was never the part that was missing. I think this is the actual reason so many smart people stay broke. Not because they don't understand money, because understanding it gave them a kind of false confidence, the sense that knowing the right answer was the hard part, when actually, knowing the right answer is closer to step 1 of about 6. There's a specific trap that only smart, financially literate people fall into, and I fell into it myself. I read a book on investing a few years back. Genuinely good book. I finished it feeling sharp, like I'd leveled up, like I understood something most people didn't. I didn't open a single new account for 4 months, because somewhere in my head, reading about the plan started to feel like a substitute for the plan. I'd talk about index funds at dinner like I had some. I didn't. I'd explain dollar cost averaging to a coworker with real confidence, and then go home and not do it myself. It's such a strange trick your brain plays on you. Learning something gives you a genuine hit of satisfaction, and that satisfaction can feel identical to the satisfaction of actually having done the thing. So you mistake the first one for the second, and you stop right there, fully convinced you're ahead. I did this again a year later, after I already knew I did it the first time. I read an entire course on negotiating salary, took notes, even practiced a few lines out loud in my car like an idiot. Then I actually got the offer call. The recruiter said the number, and there was this small pause afterward where I was supposed to say something like, "I appreciate that, but based on my research, I was expecting something closer to..." I had the sentence sitting right there. I could feel it in my mouth. What came out instead was, "Yeah, that sounds great." I remember hanging up and just sitting in my car in the parking lot for a minute, phone still warm in my hand, feeling that specific, sinking kind of stupid. The kind where you're not confused about what happened, you're just annoyed at yourself for watching it happen in real time and doing nothing to stop it. Knew better, did it anyway. Told myself I'd negotiate next time, which is exactly what I'd told myself the first time too. Once I started paying attention to this, I noticed something about the people I know who've actually built real savings. Not the ones who talk about money the most confidently, the ones who quietly have some. None of them are the smartest people I know about money. A few of them, honestly, couldn't explain an expense ratio if you asked. What they all have in common is something much less impressive sounding. They built one small, boring system, and they didn't touch it. Marcus is actually the best example of this I know. He doesn't read anything about investing, doesn't want to. He told me once his entire strategy is that his 401k contribution comes out before he ever sees the number, and he's never once gone in and lowered it, even during a year he was genuinely struggling. I asked him if that ever felt risky, just not paying attention to it. He said the opposite. He said the one time he tried to get smart about it and started reading investing forums, he ended up moving money around out of fear and lost more than he ever would have just leaving it alone. That stuck with me because it's the exact reverse of what I would have predicted. The knowledge didn't protect him. It almost cost him. The boring, automatic thing he barely thought about is what actually worked. This is the part that really messed with how I think about all of this. I used to assume the more you understood about money, the more in control you'd be. Now I think there's a point where more knowledge just gives you more sophisticated ways to talk yourself into or out of things. The guy with the credit card debt doesn't struggle to explain why he shouldn't carry a balance. He's incredibly good at explaining, in the moment, why this particular purchase is different, why this month is an exception. He has better arguments than someone who never read the books. He just points them in the wrong direction. I do a version of this too. I can justify almost any purchase to myself in under 30 seconds if I actually try, because I know enough about money to build a convincing case either way. Ignorance would almost be safer. At least ignorance doesn't come with a persuasive inner lawyer. That's the uncomfortable part of this whole thing. The same understanding that's supposed to protect you can just as easily become the thing you use to talk yourself past your own better judgment. So here's what I stopped trying to do. I stopped trying to outthink my own decisions in the moment. I moved almost everything onto autopilot. The savings transfer, the retirement contribution, specifically so my in-the-moment brain, the one with all the clever arguments, never gets a vote. Not because I don't trust myself to know the right answer, because I've watched myself know the right answer and do the other thing anyway, more than once. I also started asking a different question before big decisions. Not, do I understand this well enough? I almost always do. Instead, if I were tired or stressed, or it was a bad week, would I still do this? Because that's usually the actual moment these decisions get made, not the calm, well-informed one I picture when I'm planning ahead. And I finally opened the account from that investing book, 4 months later than I should have, but I opened it. I didn't read anything new first. I was worried that if I did, I'd find one more reason to wait a little longer. I think about my friend with the $34,000 a lot, and I don't think he's unusual. I think he's just more visible about something a lot of smart people are quietly doing. Knowing the answer was never the finish line. It just felt like one, because it's the part that's satisfying to talk about at dinner. The actual finish line is much less interesting. It's a boring transfer that happens automatically. It's a decision made in advance, before the tired version of you shows up to argue with it. If you're smart with money and still feel stuck, I don't think you need another book. I think you need fewer decisions left for you to make in the moment, because that's usually where the gap actually is. Tell me, is there something you already know you should be doing with your money and just aren't? I read every comment. And if you want more of this, subscribe, Because the psychology behind the money decisions we make and rarely admit to is exactly what this channel is about. I'm Jake. I'll see you in the next one.